What's up, guys? Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports here with a really exciting episode of Double Shot of Steelers, in that around this time tomorrow, not only will we have our first ever members only show, we will have an NFL draft. We will have quite possibly an exceptionally young talent added to the football fold around here. I can't help but be a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for here? Not cynical, more like hesitant about this round in general, knowing that the Steelers want to trade out of it, or at least to trade down. There's no way that can't remove some of the excitement, because they're telling you through their potential action here that they're not excited about the class, at least not except for what's at the very top, which they don't have access to. So what's going to happen here? Are they going to blow our minds? Are they going to do something that nobody could have seen coming? Was this all just a great big smokescreen, which really isn't how they operate? But let's just throw it out there for, possibilities purposes. I think you're going to see the Steelers end up doing something pretty boring. That's my feel right now. You got to understand who it is that we're talking about here, what their DNA is, who they are. There's nothing that could make this head coach, and let's remember, he's still running ever. Nothing that could make Mike Tomlin happier than to add something significant to the defense, in this case, the defensive front. There's nothing that could have him feel better about the process than to come away with somebody to put next to Cam Hayward in more ways than one. Not just to have him next to Cam on the field, but have him next to Cam in terms of thinking about the future of the Steelers defensive line. It's been a long time. With respect to Keanu Benton, Keanu hasn't come in and made the type of impact that would have been a match for what you'd want out of this particular group. Maybe he's been miscast. That's very likely, actually. But you haven't had that guy that comes in the way you've seen, when Geno Atkins came in Cincinnati, Calais Campbell when he came in. Guys that just come in and you just go, whoa, on the defensive front. I think that's where you're going to see Tomlin go. I think that's where you're going to see this team go, even if it means moving down and adding assets in the process. Because if there's a D-line guy that they like them more than other people like them, they're sold on it, they're going to do that. They're going to move down. I'm going to be joined here by Chris Halleck after this break, and we're going to talk about this. I want you to come in on this conversation as well. Let's keep it to the draft. None of the quarterback crap, none of that other stuff here. Let's just talk about the draft today and tomorrow as much as we can. And again, the place to go to become a member is dkps.net/join. Get that done today, like as in today. All right, we're coming back. We'll talk to Chris.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
One funny thing about the NFL draft, especially in advance, but really, really continuing into the event itself, Chris, is when the comps get mentioned. Immediately people say, wait a second, are you saying that this is like the next Earl Campbell? Or are you saying that this is the next, Mel Blount or whatever? Like, no, they just have similar styles, but that's how it goes. So when Steelers South says, what's Mean Joe up to? I think he's referring to actual Mean Joe, who we all saw show up for the 1974 reunion at Acrisure Stadium. Dude, just hand him a helmet. I don't care how old he is. If he can still get into a 3-point, I'll take him, you know?
Yeah. It's awesome to see those guys, especially because next year next season, we're going to see the Super Bowl 10 team do their 50th anniversary. And so it'll be another, time for Mean Joe to come back. And it's so awesome to see those guys. But yeah, like for a while, it has just seemed like Mean Joe and Mel Blount, like those guys still look like they can play almost.
We are putting a lot of content up on our app and on our website, meaning at DKPittsburghSports.com. If you've never gotten our app, what seriously, it's free. Just go to your app store or your Google Play and download, do a search on DK Sports. You'll find it. Not DraftKings, us, DK Pittsburgh Sports. Okay. Go and find that, download it and get it into your phone. You'll love it. You'll never let it go. Matthew asks, hey, DK and Chris, how far down do you think the Steelers will go and I've been wondering about this myself, Chris, because when the Steelers say we're open to trading down, there's lots of different ways to define that. You can trade down within the first round and still do something. But when you're also talking about trading down, getting down into the second round and so forth, that's a totally different discussion, isn't it?
It definitely is. Now, there's a couple of different ways to answer this. Number one, I personally think the Texans are a potential trade candidate to trade back. It would be 4 spots to 25th overall. Now, you're not going to get a second-round pick for that. And if you do, you just tip your hat and you hurry up, hang up the phone before they say no, never mind, or whatever. You're most likely to just get a third-round pick at the best, at most, which is still good because it's still the sweet spot of the draft. But no matter how far they trade back, even if they were to trade all the way back into the second round, the further you trade back, the more capital you're going to get. You're not just going to get, I might get an additional second. You might get a couple more day 2 picks. And again, the sweet spot of this draft, and this is not just my opinion, okay? This is actual stuff I've heard from the inside. The sweet spot of this draft is on day 2. And I'm not saying that they're dead set on we're just going to get out of the first round. But if that were to happen, I don't think that that's their prerogative. But if that were to happen, the drop off from 21 to 34, it sounds like a lot. That's like 13 spots. It's not that big.
Okay. Well, that's good information to know. Kyler asks, should the Steelers be considering safety? I say no. And I say no to the defensive secondary across the board. And the reason for that is, well, a couple of them. One, I think you have greater areas of need. There are some players, there are first-round talents that are available in secondary positions. But my goodness, as much as I can advocate for best player available or BPA, I'm not there with this at all. You can and do find secondary talent on the free agency market year after year after year. And you don't have to wonder what they've got, which is a big, big concern, Artie Burns, when it comes to the secondary. You just don't know what you're going to get. Senquez Golson. I mean, I can do a whole bunch of these, Sean Davis. There's just, you just don't know. Whereas if somebody's been in the league, they've shown you how they react to failure. They show you how they react to getting beaten, which is a big, big part of that. That job. It's more like baseball than anything else in the sport, meaning you fail 70% of the time or something, right? That's probably not the ratio you want, but you get the idea. I would be looking more at other positions. You could add depth. Yeah, I don't want to be drafting for depth. Give me football players with ceiling, even in the later rounds, and besides, as far as safety goes, what did they pay for Deshaun Elliott? What's his contract?
I have to look it up.
Let me find it here.
It's very affordable.
Considering what he just did, it's a bargain and a half.
I kept saying it throughout the entire season. I was like, what a find. It really was. The one counterpoint I'll make, and I'm not saying I disagree, I don't think safety is that high on the radar. 2.2626.
2 years, $6 million.
Okay. Yeah.
That's it. This guy didn't miss a tackle.
Yeah.
Go get him on the open market.
Yeah. But I will to make the counterpoint, the Eagles, and I'm using them because they're the Super Bowl champs, and there are similarities with the way the Steelers want to do things. They used 2 high picks last year on Quinyon Mitchell, a cornerback, and Cooper DeJean, a cornerback, and it put their secondary over the top, like way over the top. That became a phenomenal secondary right away. And so if you can identify a guy, by all means, if it's Malachi Starks, if it's Nick Emanwari, whoever it is, I'm not saying it's one of those guys. I'm just bringing up a couple of actual names, but who knows? But that would be the one exception. If you identify a guy like that guy's going to come in and be a weapon, I'm all for it because you need playmakers in the secondary.
Travante says, which scenario would be more of a shocker, trading up for Ashton Genty or picking Jalen Milroe at 21? It's absolutely trading up to get Genty. The Raiders are, by every account out of Las Vegas, are sold on Ashton Genty as their franchise running back, if he even gets there. And there's some sentiment about that. We'll see how that plays out. The top of drafts tend not to surprise you all that much, you know. But if he's there, the Raiders are taking him, and to move up to get him, as we've been talking about all week, my goodness, the assets that you have to part with, present and future, that had better be everything to everybody, this player that you go get.
And as much as I love Ashton Genty, I don't give up. You would have to give up a future first to go get him. And I'm not giving up a future first to trade up that far. I'll trade a future first to go get a quarterback if I believe that quarterback's the guy, like the guy. But I'm not giving up a future first to go get a running back. I'm just not.
Yeah, DV says Milroe at 21 would be bonkers reach even if he doesn't. I mean, I just don't see that happening. I don't see.
I don't either.
This stuff about quarterbacks, this has been fun for a while, but it's really starting to fade out a little bit, and there's reasons for that. This team is going to end up doing something. I'm going to keep saying this. It's just going to be boring.
Yeah.
That pick's going to come, and Chris and I are going to be sitting in that room going, yep. When it happens, you know?
So it's funny because when we were at the press conference yesterday and we were talking about the things that we took away from Tomlin and Omar and what they said, notice that neither one of us said, oh my gosh, Tomlin loves Shedeur Sanders. He loves him. Even though he talked about him, he directly addressed him, and people are like, he's the only player he talked about. He's also the only
one he asked about.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's getting desperate. Yeah, exactly. That's also this time of year. And I'm seeing people putting rumors up here. Don't take that somewhere else. We're reporters. We're in there. We're talking to these people. We're not here to try to stoke up stuff or to get you to go, oh, George Pickens is going to be traded. You know, when we're in there yesterday and they're telling us that George and DK are their wide receivers. It's just, come on.
Yeah.
Denny says, if Tyler Shuck, Will Howard, and Jalen Milroe are there in the 3rd round, who are you taking? Now we're having an interesting and plausible scenario put forth here. Who are you taking, Chris, out of those 3?
For me, I'm taking Milroe. I'm taking the home run swing. I'm taking the home run swing. 3rd round, I'm all for it. Because, again, if he hits, oh, my gosh, he hits.
Okay, if he hits, great. But when you're talking about, everyone talks about Milroe in terms of, well, he's a project, and therefore that means he has some super high ceiling. Well, he does because of his athleticism, okay? But the part where I can't let go of Howard, that he's available down there, that Howard's figurative arrow, his Mike Tomlin arrow, is pointing like this based on his final few performances at Ohio State, based on how he handled the pressure, not just of being at that big program, but of those monstrous games. Those are tantamount to NFL games.
100%.
Okay, what he's participating in. He was new to the school. He came in and just took over. The offense took over the program. That is someone who, I'm sorry, man. 3rd round.
Oh no, 100%. Like, and that's why I said for me, I'm taking Milroe. If I'm asking, if I'm going to say, what do I think the Steelers are going to do? I still think they like Milroe. I mean, they took him to dinner the day ahead of his pro day at Alabama, but they met multiple times with Will Howard. And I know for a fact, and I've reported this previously, but I know for a fact, during the college season, Mike Tomlin was not on the Will Howard train, and he is now. So Will Howard did something to change his mind.
He walked into stadiums. I'm using all the Tomlin terminology here on purpose. He went into stadiums and he got the job done. What coach anywhere more frequently, more vocally espouses that specific trait in players, including even after they get into the NFL?
Mm-hmm.
You know, Mr. CJ says no quarterback until the 4th round at the earliest. You can't make that. That sounds really good and dramatic, and here's a take. But you don't do that. You don't just go in there and make blanket statements like that, CJ. You have to look at the playing field as it's laid out in front of you. Okay, and it changes constantly. It's not the draft board. Your own draft board morphs because your guys are sliding up while others are taken. You have to be more open-minded than that.
I agree with that. And another big factor that plays into it is if the Steelers end up not gaining another day 2 pick and the 3rd round is their only second pick or their only pick of the second day, they have to use that pick very, very wisely. Don't just take a quarterback just because, we need to take a quarterback.
Right.
If there's a running back there that fell, if Caleb Johnson, for whatever reason, fell and he's there, I'm sorry. That's who they should take. And it's a running back they met with. I'm just saying, they can't just say, okay, 3rd round, we're taking a quarterback no matter what. They cannot do that.
You know, Denny says Omar up here specifically mentioned round 3 and quarterback in the same sentence yesterday. Nobody parses these conversations more than Chris and I do. Okay. We went through every syllable and we sat there too. We were in the same room. Okay. And we're listening to all this. And you have the feel, you have the live sense for it. Then you go back and you look at the transcript or the video or the inflections and everything else here. That one, Denny, don't take it anywhere. They do not have a quarterback assigned to be taken in a certain round. They don't even know where they're going to be picking.
Yep.
Okay, if Omar gets his wish and he moves into the 2nd round in some capacity, whether that's back or up or whatever, they're still going to be operating off their board. One comment that I did pick up on, I believe it was from Omar yesterday, was that they're still in the process of finalizing that board. That means that this was as of yesterday morning. Now they had a whole work day and then today's work day, so I can't say today at 4:17 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday that they're doing it. But they still had battles to wage with each other about big board stuff. And when they do big board, this is also another thing that's worth sharing with people, because I don't know how many people realize this. When they do big board, they don't do it from the standpoint of who's going to be taken in the entire NFL. They're not doing a mock draft. They stress this a lot. They used to a long time ago. They stopped doing them. What they do is a big board that applies, and I'm going to take the words right out of Omar's mouth here, to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he added this, in 2025. Okay, did you catch that, Chris, that he added that in? To the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2025. That's what the board is based on. So their board isn't going to look like anything you've seen anywhere computed by anybody, including Chris's one-of-a-kind spectacular mock draft that he has atop our website right now over on DK Pittsburgh Sports.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's I like the plug. No, but even like that mock draft, that's not going to be the same thing, because the way that I understand, and this is not only through what Omar said yesterday, but also through conversations that I've had with people on the inside and how it's been explained to me, is that the big board is built pretty much the way, like this year they're picking 21st, so they have their top 21. And the number one guy is if we're picking first overall in the 2025 NFL draft, this is who we're going to take. And that's the player. Like, that's our guy. Then the number 2 guy is if we're picking 2nd overall and that one guy is gone, that's who we're going to take at number 2. And that's how they build it all the way down to number 21. And so if by the time number 21 comes around and there are 6 guys who are in their top 21 that are still there, Those are the guys that they're going to be looking at, and that's when the discussions end up.
Hodge says, "I don't see a trade. The class being so flat. Who really wants to move up? All we're hearing from anybody, this isn't Hodge, this is me, is I'm really eager to move down. Let's move down. Carolina Panthers are holding number 8, and they're practically flying planes with the message overall of the other markets. Please take our pick. We want nothing to do with this."
Yeah,
Dan Morgan last week at his press conference. In that event, though, Hodge. To what you're talking about, where did he go here? I lost him. What's the rest of his? Here it is. Maybe the Giants for Sanders or Dart. That doesn't get the Steelers a first rounder. What I wanted to say to that was, I don't think they care.
No.
I did not get the impression that these guys are going to be moved much one way or another if they stay in the first round. And I am trying to say this in advance to brace people for this possibility, because you're going to get yourself all hyped up about tomorrow, and then they don't even pick. That's some rare air. I don't know when's. I mean, other than the Minka trade, obviously, where the Steelers just didn't have a pick, and nobody complained about that because I think everybody had a pretty good idea what kind of an impact Minka was going to have.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time. I'd have to actually do research.
Trading out.
Yeah, trading
out.
Yeah. It doesn't happen, but there are teams, and again, I saw somebody mention it, and not only I'm not trying to spoil the mock draft. I urge you to go read it. Houston is a team that could look to move up. They have to build their offensive line. If there's a run on tackles, they may be like, all right, we need to go get a tackle. Plus, there are teams like the Steelers, like the Rams, who are missing a day 2 pick because they used it to get something else. And they might be looking to possibly move back and possibly pick up extra picks. So if there are teams who are willing to move up to go get a quarterback, to go make sure, or if there's a gigantic run of edge rushers and there's a team we're picking 27, like the Ravens, for example, we're picking 27, but man, we got to make sure we get an edge rusher. Or if it's the Commanders sitting at 29 and they're like, we got to go get an edge rusher. And oh my gosh, there's already 6 gone. Who knows? Who knows? And if you have the extra picks, and some of these teams do, they can go move up. They can go, okay, we can afford to give up one of 2 third-round picks to go make sure we get our guy that we want. So yeah, there are guys who are willing to trade up.
Mike in Texas says, what does it take to get back into the second if the Steelers don't trade away their first? Is it a 4th and a 6th? Bearing in mind that the Steelers aren't, in a super high position in the first round. What is it going to take to get that off of them?
A lot to stay in the first round and to get back into the second round is, I'm just going to say it's almost impossible. You'd have to find a GM that's really, really desperate, and I just don't get the sense that that's going to happen.
Oh, wait, call coming in from Cleveland.
Yeah.
Hello, Cleveland. Hello, Cleveland.
But the thing is that I think a lot of people are thinking that the Steelers are so hell-bent on getting a quarterback that the Broncos are probably the team that are going to be fielding a lot of calls because they're picking right in front of the Steelers. And so if the Browns or the Giants get really desperate, they could be calling Denver to, we're going to make sure we get Shedeur before the Steelers can draft him, even though I don't think the Steelers are going to be taking him. But, it's just, I think the Steelers are going to be happy if they can stay in the first round and get a second, third round pick. It's still going to be a good pick for them because they, again, day 2 is where it's at. Day 2 is both the second and the third round. They don't necessarily have to get a second round pick. If they can get a second, third, I think they'll be happy with it.
AFL says, hey, DK, is there anything going on in the NFL tomorrow? That's why people tune in for this program. You know what? Honestly, I would rather talk about that than I would about random crap that gets concocted in different places. And I'm seeing half of our comments are here about that. When there is something substantive to report about the Pittsburgh Steelers, we will do that. What we will not do is go chase every time somebody types something onto their screen and say whether it's true or not true. Otherwise, we'd be wasting our time, your time, everybody's time. Okay. We're not, what's the word I'm looking for here without it being mean? I mean, we're reporters.
Yeah.
That's what we actually do for a living. This is just the fun part. Okay. That's all this is. Okay. It's a thing that we do in addition to reporting, but reporting is the foundation of everything. So we're not going to be chomping after every little thing to try to get everybody, going, whoa, did you hear what they said today on Double Shot? Oh, man. No. We're just here to keep it real, and wherever that goes is wherever it goes.
Mm-hmm.
J-Bo says I made it. Thank God he did. I've got the boss on that one. It's so funny that I actually really enjoy it when people are like, you can tell they're hurrying to get into the live one, and then they make it, and there's sweat figuratively coming off their brow on their avatars. We're not going anywhere, Jay. We're here. We're happy to have you.
Oh yeah.
Reiner says, are the Steelers against trading within the division or the conference? That's a tough one, considering that we are talking about a team that has made exchanges with the Baltimore Ravens in recent years. There are certain situations that just align themselves and that don't necessarily put you at a competitive disadvantage, nor put the other team at a competitive advantage. If it's one of those things where, let's say you're having some 4-12 season or whatever, or your team really stinks and the other team's going somewhere, that's more often when a conversation like this comes up. Do you really want to help the Ravens win it all, or vice versa? I don't know that I've ever heard them out loud object to doing something within the division. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely not within the conference. I mean, they traded with the Patriots to go get Broderick Jones, so they're not opposed to trading within the conference. You'd be really hampering yourself if you cut yourself off from 15 other teams. Within the division, I do think there's a little bit of a maybe that's kind of our last resort type situation, but I don't think again, your job as a GM, like saying for Omar Khan, is to acquire as many assets as possible for the team. And if the Ravens or the Browns or the Bengals are willing to give you way more than you'd ever expect for a trade, you have to trust what you're going to do internally. You're not going to worry about what you're giving them. You're going to worry about what you're bringing in so that you can best use that to make the team better. And if it's the best possible acquisition you can make, why say no to it just because it's a division rival? I think they'd rather not, but they're not going to really close themselves off to it either.
Richard Hunt says, along with a $5 contribution, it's appreciated. Says, love the show. What was your favorite draft pick at the time of the pick? See, I could do the hindsight thing and get clever on you and say, Troy Polamalu, absolutely. I knew he would be that. And we'd all sound really smart. I could also tell you that everybody knew TJ Watt was going to be a perennial DPOY candidate. And we'd be lying. Mine was David DeCastro. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One, Dave was like consensus top 10. Unanimous top 10. I should say consensus, maybe top 5, top 6. And the Steelers did not have a need at his position. He was the classic BPA. He was the classic case of, what are we doing here? We're not walking away from this guy. I don't care if we have 7 guards. I don't care if we have Alan Faneca in his prime. We are not passing up on David DeCastro. So I don't remember exactly where Dave got taken. It was in the 20s, right? Let me see. David DeCastro drafted. What year was that? He was the 24th overall pick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was considered the number 1 offensive line prospect going in that class. And the Steelers said, we are not, I don't care, going past this guy. That to me is the definition all around of a great pick. And you know what makes it even better? He ended up becoming Dave.
Yeah.
Okay. Even after the significant injury that he had in Orchard Park early on, he bounced back and he became Dave. He was an all-pro year after year after year after year. I love that pick. I love telling that whole story.
Well,
I love
I've
Dave
covered
too. Just to throw that out there. Okay.
I've covered 2 drafts, and so in terms of drafts I've covered, I would probably just say I thought the Keanu Benton pick was a really, really good pick. I thought, and again, we have yet to see how that plays out, but that would have been mine. Again, I've covered 2 drafts, but knowing the history and just being a fan of the NFL, just being you can't like you can pretty much tell I love like to watch football. Just during bye weeks, I'm watching the NFL. Like yeah, it's not like, oh, that's work, I'm ignoring it. Just in terms of Steelers history, even in the moment, I thought the Le'Veon Bell pick in the 2nd round was phenomenal. I thought that was a really good
another
pick.
one. That was another one.
I didn't think he'd turn into what he did, but I thought at the moment, I was like, that might end up being a really good pick for them at running back, and it was. We get some good answers to this one. Chris Ferland says, I went crazy when we drafted Ryan Shazier. Nobody had me that psyched. And that's because if you would have watched him at Ohio State, you would have had the foresight. I don't want to give you too much credit here, Chris, but if you would have had the foresight to know where the inside linebacker position was headed in the NFL and how far ahead of the curve, not just the Steelers, but also Shazier himself were at the time, it's an amazing pick. Yeah.
And Shazier's an amazing football player and individual. And Chris also comes in with another expert opinion. I already feel so bad for the Browns' '1 pick.
You know why?
It's like getting taken by the Pirates.
Do you know?
It's like, what are you going to do?
Do you know why I feel bad for him? It's because it's most likely going to be Travis Hunter out of Colorado.
Yeah.
And he can play both cornerback and wide receiver. And
they have to use him both ways. They have to. He's made that clear.
But what if they don't? Or what if they're like, we're going to have you play corner more than receiver when they probably need him at receiver more than corner? And he could, I don't know. I just feel like they're going to make the wrong decision with how to use him. Such a special player, and they're going to use him wrong.
Yeah, Jay, you weren't alone on that one, my man. Since I was so wrong about Kenny Pickett. Wandering Warrior comes in with a $5 contribution. It says, does his DK staff have a specific favorite adult beverage to consume through this year's draft? Dude, we're working. And also, I don't drink. But I guarantee you that nobody does when they're working.
We're not allowed. Even
People
if we wanted to,
we're
not
just
allowed.
sitting there eating nachos and whatever.
Yeah.
We got a lot to do these next 3 days. Like a lot.
In the past, but like when I've not been working a draft,
Here it comes.
I'll pop a cold one, or I'll sip some whiskey or something like that. But no, while I'm working.
Pittsburgh fan says, I love the Martavis Bryant pick. That was a good one, especially for where he was taken. And if you thought that you could, address the concerns that people had, which it turns out now in hindsight were totally unwarranted. Let's clear the record where Martavis is concerned, because what he was doing then is totally allowed now and should have been allowed, throughout. That's something that you could find the NFL's player membership, whether it's alumni or current, will be unanimous in agreement on that specific subject. CJ goes off the board here with the Big Dan pick.
Oh, geez.
I like that. Captain Crunch says, off draft topic, but what's the over-under of TJ Watt's sacks against Kenny and the Browns this coming season? I'd say 0. You know why?
Why is that?
Come on, think about it. What side's he bailing to?
He's gonna spin to the other side. He's gonna spin into Alex Highsmith.
Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig are gonna have a field day. In fact, they might just park over there before the snap and just wait.
Yeah, all you have to do is contain the edge. He'll spin into you. Don't worry about
that edge.
Yeah,
Kenny's not coming to TJ's side, and it's got nothing to do with TJ at all. Frank says that Herbig's draft day phone call was epic. Yeah, see, that's another thing you're going to rob people of if there's no first rounder tomorrow. It's not going to have that, that emotional, hey, how are you doing? It's Mike Tomlin. And whoever the player is just has his head down between his knees and he's sobbing and he's letting it all out. And the family all realizes what's going on. And they're all like, shh, just sit. They don't know who it is. They're looking at the TV trying to find out.
Yeah.
Jerry says, I wish they would have kept Landon Roberts. Let's not get into sore subjects here, Jerry. That's a sore subject with a capital S and a capital S.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see what Malik Harrison brings. I'm not going to get down on Malik Harrison before seeing what he can contribute. But man, you say you want to shore up the run defense, and you send out the guy who had 14 tackles in that game.
Yeah,
meaning in the Baltimore game. Come on.
Yeah. No, I again, to go back to the Malik Harrison thing, he's filling two roles for the price of one. I mean, it's an expensive one. It's probably more than what Roberts and Matakevich both made together. It definitely is more than that, but still, that's what you're doing. One person for two jobs.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna take a couple more today here. Team Highsmith is going to rock key pay. Mr. CJ says he was very wrong about TJ. There was a lot of that because TJ came after Jarvis, and the fear was that they were just trying to force people of incorrect positions or incorrect body types into the edge rusher role when Jarvis never had a prayer.
Yeah.
With how slight he was, unless he was going to become Jason Worlds and just be able to accelerate through holes, and he wasn't. Jarvis didn't have any of that.
Yep.
Great dude though. One of my favorites to cover. I felt so awful for this. Wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
He didn't send the Steelers some sort of death threat that you need to pick me.
Right. The game was evolving, man. The game was evolving.
Yeah, it really was. That's a good point where he's concerned. Carol chimes in with her usual Mason Rudolph assessment, says at least they had enough sense to bring Mason back, so I have hope for their ability to figure things out. Actually, one of the many positives to bringing Mason back, regardless of how the whole situation plays out. Can you imagine, Chris, going into this draft with nobody? Like with one guy, Skylar Thompson, on a futures contract? Can you imagine?
I mean, it's possible. I mean, it is possible. I do think
this close to being possible.
Yeah,
because the Titans were offering Mason to come back.
Yep. That's why the Steelers are legitimately excited about it. I can tell you that right now. They're excited about bringing Mason back. It wasn't just something to be like, oh well, it's going to be a nice feel good story and everything. No, they were legitimately excited, and they have legitimate faith. If everything fails, if they don't get Aaron Rodgers, if they don't trade for Kirk Cousins, they have faith that Mason can do it. They wouldn't have signed him if they didn't think that.
And one of the things to remember in that scenario is that, yes, does Tomlin get stuck in his stances? Is he stubborn? Yes. All of that across the board. Does he label people maybe a little too early? Yes. However, does he listen to his locker room? Also, yes.
Yep.
And we have seen examples of that. It takes a little longer than some might like, but he gets there. And when his players tell him, we trust that guy, we're ready to ride with that guy. When they tell him there's nobody who outworks that guy, there's nobody who's more proud to be a Steeler than that guy. First off, he knows this. Okay. I don't want to make it sound like Tomlin is running the team from some satellite somewhere. Okay. He's there. He's as much in the room as any head coach / manager you will see in professional sports.
Very much.
There's Chris. You haven't been as many as I have over the years.
No, that's true.
But you've never seen anything like that. And it had to be pretty jarring for you when you started on this beat, seeing the amount of time that Tomlin is in that room.
Yep. It's very, very true. And listen, like baseball managers, because obviously I was on a baseball beat for a few years before I started covering the Steelers. And baseball managers,
they pass through.
They pass through. They don't really spend a lot of time in the clubhouse. Mike Tomlin, especially during Ravens week. I mean, during Ravens week this past year, but all 3 weeks, he was in their locker room every single day after practice. Normally it's once a week, and he'll just kind of walk around and he'll kind of say something, whether it's to kind of pump a guy up or if he's just shooting the crap or whatever it is, he will make his rounds. He wants to have a good feel for the pulse of the team. But during Ravens week, it's every day. Every single day he's in there. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. He is in that locker room after practice. The one thing you cannot question is how much of how much of an accurate reading he has on the pulse of the team, and It's in the player report card. His players love playing for him.
The other thing that ends up happening is he'll find people who used to have some sort of connection to the Ravens, and he will rub them in front of everybody. Okay. He will go at guys who were originally with the Ravens, and what he'll say out loud, for those of you who've never heard this before, this is going to shock you, but he'll do this. He'll go, they didn't want you. Like, do you understand that if they wanted you, if they're telling you I want to make sure I get this right to not mischaracterize it. He'll say, this is what they think of you. This is what their value is of you, that they're okay with you coming here to play for us against them. You understand that that's what they're doing here, right? And he would take a guy who was like a mild-mannered, like Chris Wormley. Great example. Worm was the most quiet, hey, how are you today? Yeah. All right, kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And then on Ravens week, and it was show on the field, he was just a guy that would kind of do his job. He wasn't anything special, except when he played Baltimore, because Tomlin had him ready to eat live animals by the time the game started.
Yep.
Okay? With no fork or knife. He was just eating live animals out there. And these guys would really, really buy this. So one of the things that you get in Tomlin, yes, there are a lot of negatives to his approach. I've been over that. Yes, I feel like the team could benefit from new leadership. But you never have to wonder whether or not he's got them ready to play or whether he's in touch with them. And that's the thing that Art Rooney always says, first and foremost, whenever there's criticism of Tomlin. He'll say he knows how to get young men motivated.
Yep. That's never a question with him. And it's honestly impressive because the time that he's cut from a different cloth than these players nowadays. I mean, he's an old school guy, and not all old school guys mesh with the younger generation. But he figures out a way. His message never gets stale. That's impressive to do for the length of time it's happened.
Think about the changes that have happened over the years. I remember the conversations that I was having with Troy Polamalu, with Brett Kiesel, and the guys that were just so exasperated by the next generation that were coming in, and they could tell that they weren't going to be the same. Okay, they weren't going to have that same all-in passion, that Ryan Clark fighting mentality. Okay, they just weren't going to be like that, and they couldn't accept it. Okay, and I'm going to get really specific here. Troy could not handle it. Yeah. Okay, it was driving Troy nuts. Well, the head coach doesn't either. He can't either, but he had no choice. He has no choice. And I give him, as much as I criticize him, I give him a ton of credit for finding a way to relate, to continue to communicate that way with the current generation of players, up to and including something as strange as the situation that he encounters every single day with George Pickens. I mean, how do you imagine George even just 15 years ago on this team? They would have devoured him in that room.
100%. That kind of attitude didn't fly, and it's a different time. It's a different era. Players are different now than they were even 10 years ago.
Adrian just joined. We're getting a bunch of people coming in today, and that's good because Chris and I are going to do a special members-only show tomorrow in advance of the NFL draft. We'll be over on the south side. We'll be getting ready to do stuff, work. Or as someone suggested earlier, just drink all night.
That's a good way to get, never be on the south side again, by the way. It's just sit down and be ready to go and just put the beer down. And can you imagine just PR being like, what are you doing?
James is attempting to encourage the Mason Rudolph goatee. Don't do it. He's trying something he really shouldn't be trying. That's as far as I'll take that one. Okay, that's as far as I'm going to take that one.
It's getting thicker, too. I saw the pictures from the first day of the voluntary workout, too.
I see what he's going for. I'm not sure he'll get there.
That's good stuff.
I mean, to me, he is just always going to look like the 18-year-old that showed up here, from Oklahoma State. And to try anything different is, I don't know. Cody says he looks like a villain. He can't, though. He's like the nicest guy in the world. So he's supposed to now all of a sudden be your new badass quarterback. Get out of here. We are not having any of this on this program. Captain Crunch says, it seems Mason just wants to ball out and be a leader. Why would they entertain anything else when they've got a dog, D-A-W-G, misspelled here, ready to attack anything in front of him? Stephen Thompson says, don't be a hater. That goatee is awesome. It is not awesome. I will be a hater, and I will be comfortable with it. And he will just have to take it, and he won't just be taking it from me. Trust me. Bizarro world, Mason. Dark Mason, says Rochelle. Dark Mason with the Calgary Flames alternate logo, flames coming out of his nostrils. You know what I'm talking about? The snorting horse.
Yeah.
That the Flames use.
Uh-huh.
Your last word for today, Chris. Your last vibe.
Man, I'm finally ready for this to be over, because it just seems like the not the draft to be over, but the anticipation for it, because now it's like this draft day eve, the noise is getting louder and louder and louder and louder. Just understand, as to reemphasize what DK said, understand what this franchise wants to do, what they've been wanting to do this entire time. Don't listen to the noise. I'm not saying that they're not going to take a quarterback, but it's just not likely. It just depends on how the draft falls. But try to enjoy it. Don't just write off whoever they draft immediately. They haven't even played an NFL snap yet. So try to enjoy it.
Carol says he's been working on this goatee, not to change the subject, but my God, this is critical. He's been working on it since January. I'm sorry, man. If you got to work this hard on it, it's not meant to be. It's not meant to be. This is like when the hockey players do the thing in November, they call Movember. They call the mustaches to call it attention to prostate cancer. Some of them can do it and some of them can't. Sidney Crosby will forever be Sid the Kid for a reason.
Yeah. Gino too.
Gino didn't even try.
It's because he can't. Sid at least has grown into the point of being able to have the patchy scruff. But
Jonathan says Roman Wilson convinced Mason to grow the goatee. Mark Bowers wants to know, just so anybody doesn't think these ever stop. Hey, DK and Chris, how did Roman Wilson look in OTAs? We've got Roman Wilson stuff. It doesn't ever stop. Rumor has it, says Dale, that Roman Wilson is going to play quarterback next year. You guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. Let's do it again tomorrow, but seriously, stop everything when this show is over and hit dkps.net/join to make sure that you're not shut out from me and Chris tomorrow. See you tomorrow, Chris. See you tomorrow, Chris, isn't a bad one.
No, that's great.
She likes that one.
Just say bye.
But now it has to be like Chris has to partake in it.
What do you mean?
Well, see, if I say see you later, Chris, and he just sits there, it's like like slamming the door in his face after he delivered the pizza or something. Bring him in here. He's cracking up down there.
God, really?
Yeah.
So you're getting good at goodbyes, but he's not leaving.
But then we're always bringing him back in because it's like you brought the pizza. I'm really happy to have it. I take it off of you, and I just go, see you later, Chris.
It does kind of feel that way a little bit.
Where's our?
Only because he doesn't really leave. He just gets covered with a.
Yeah, he gets covered by the number of subscriptions or whatever that is. The thing. Our goal of 3,000 members. What is?
He's under there.
Where are we actually? What's our number here? We had a big setback, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, look at us. We went backward, and that's because these gifts expire after a month. You have to come in and be a real member. That's the way it works. That's the way that number actually grows.
About 1,000 of them are recurring. The rest are all gifts.
Wow. Did you hear that? 1,000 of them are recurring and the rest are gifts. So the recurring are the ones that we need to get up. The gifts are great. They're appreciated. They help people, come in and see what it's like and whatever. And they'll come in handy tomorrow for sure. B Days became a member today. Doug James did. David Lindsay did. Eric gifted one. Richard Hunt left a $5 contribution with a great question, by the way. Jessica came in as a new member. Wandering Warrior with a $5 contribution, wondering if we get drunk while we work. Jonathan is a new member. Eric with a gift. David, new member. Sam Jones, new member. David Sikorsky came in as a new member. So the way to do this is to go look right under Chris's much more fully developed facial hair, unlike Mason's
adult beard.
Yeah, it's like he wasn't trying to get it in by January. It's dkps.net/join is the place to be. We can't leave out Vic. He came in at the very beginning with 10 gifts for they get distributed to you guys. But I'm going to say it again so that again, no, I don't want anybody getting mad at us tomorrow. dkps.net/join. And if you don't know what that is, it's 99 cents a month. That's it. And it covers all of our programming, as Steelers Love points out, all of them. And today alone, there was a new Scout's Eye. There was My Daily Shot of Steelers. There was the Ramon Foster show. There's this show. And coming up, is it 5:30 you're doing it? You and Matt?
Yeah, 5:30, yep.
At 5:30, Chris and Matt are going to do a Southside Beat. You get a whole month of that for less than $1, but you even get a penny back from your dollar.
Yeah.
We don't have any pennies.
I can't even remember the last time I held a penny. I see them because my kids have piggy banks, but yeah.
You have your kids have piggy banks. What are they going to do with that? Like the Mint is going to reject them at some point.
No joke.
All right, guys. Well, we will hook up again tomorrow. Remember, when you're done, dkps.net/join is where you want to go to become a member. We'll see you guys.